Hello Internet, Mike Byrne here from MMOBomb.com, bringing you an episode of Gameplay Action. And if you have been an MMO bomber for a long time, you remember this show. This is not a first look. This is a chance for us to just take a look at something out there in the free-to-play space, whether it be a beta, an early access, or anything like that, and give you some initial thoughts on it. So this time, we're going to be giving you a quick hit on Phantasy Star Online 2 New Genesis, which just wrapped up its global closed beta on PC, and it was only available via the Microsoft Store for this particular test. So instead of giving you a full review, just want to take a few minutes and tell you what you can expect if you plan to jump into this game, and if maybe you weren't totally a fan of Phantasy Star Online 2, why New Genesis might be enough to actually get you into the gameplay. So let's take a peek at what we've got here. Fans of PSO2 already are going to love New Genesis, and they probably know they are going to love New Genesis. It also helps that you do have the ability, once the game has actually launched, to jump back and forth between Phantasy Star Online 2 and Phantasy Star Online 2 New Genesis. Now, the main differences between the two is New Genesis is a more open-world experience as opposed to the instance-based experience of the original PSO2. A graphics overhaul, including a much more detailed character creator that, yeah, upon spending some time in there, maybe I'm not going to spend 15 hours like some people have reportedly spent in the character creator, but I'm probably going to spend more time in there upon launch than I did at the actual launch of PSO2 here in the West. The New Genesis character creator, far more robust, more sliders, more things to pick from, chances to take a look at emotes and voice lines and all of that fun stuff, costumes, and that's another key point. Costumes do carry over, for the most part, from PSO2 to New Genesis. So that allows you to essentially create one character and toggle back and forth between the two games, whether that be at the start menu or actually in-game using the block elevators that are in PSO2. This gives people that haven't had a chance or didn't want to play PSO2 to at least have the ability to jump into that game, the original PSO2 game, and maybe farm some certain cosmetic items that they see somebody wearing and carry that over into PSO2 New Genesis. Now, I'm not going to spend this video breaking down all the differences. That's more of a first look thing that we'll do when the game actually launches, such as mags serving a little bit of a different function between the two games, very stat-based in the original and no stats influencing anything in the New Genesis model, and some other items along those lines. But for the purposes of a broad overview, let's take a look at this from a couple different standpoints. One is the PSO2 player. If you are a PSO2 player, or you were, like myself, and kind of fell out of the game a little bit once you heard about New Genesis and the unlikelihood of new episodes or anything being added to PSO2, you're probably coming back. And you're probably going to be pleasantly surprised. The open world experience does make the game feel far faster than the original PSO2, jumping in and out of various instances. The combat is tremendously smooth compared to the original PSO2, and the graphical upgrade definitely helps because PSO2 was an 8-year-old game. Now, that's not to say that New Genesis is on par with some of the higher-end graphical titles out there, but it is a marked improvement over the PSO2 8-year-old version. Story-wise, New Genesis picks up about 1,000 years after the events of PSO2. Again, another interesting wrinkle of allowing you to play both games is if you do want to get that past story experience, you can dabble in PSO2, get some story, and then hop over to New Genesis and play with some friends. But from a core standpoint on the gameplay, you're going to have about the same experience here. The game is all about leveling up, farming equipment, getting RNG drops, coming back, upgrading those weapons and items as much as you can, your armor pieces, by feeding them other items and armor pieces and weapons to get +1, +2, +3, max them out, limit break them to unlock their potential if they're weapons you want to do so with, and continue ad nauseum. The addition of an open world does make this a little more dynamic, because all of the events that you typically would play inside Phantasy Star Online 2 are now world events, including emergency quests. But this also reveals one of the larger differences between the two games. You see, in Phantasy Star Online 2, most things were gated by level. A particular urgent quest would require you to have a class at a certain level, or a class and a subclass at a certain level. Phantasy Star Online 2 differs a little bit. Everything is basically run by your battle score, your battle points. Now, this particular number is influenced by level because leveling up does naturally increase your battle points, but so does unlocking various skills, upgrading weapons, upgrading armor, all of those types of things. So, while it doesn't take into account player skill, which definitely can still play a factor in the game, these points are used as a gating mechanism rather than just sheer levels, which was done in PSO2. Now, that doesn't mean you can't do certain things. An area might have, let's say, a 900 battle point recommendation on it when you enter. And even if you're at 800 battle points, you'd be able to enter. You just might have a bit of a harder time with some of the enemies. However, some things, like the emergency quests that happen just on the map now, no visiting a station to queue up for one, those would actually be gated, and you might not be able to queue up simply based on your battle points. On that front, though, PSO2 players can expect a lot of the same systems and almost identical menus, whether it comes from daily quests, weekly quests, story quests, side quests, and there wasn't a lot of story available in the closed beta. It was more a tutorial. Those all carry over into New Genesis in almost the exact same fashion you're used to. But we do pick up new additions to the game, things like regional mags. Since you're not statting up your own personal mag, there are regional mags that might give you buffs in different areas by giving them various items as you happen to walk through the area. Since it's an open world, we now have the ability to teleport from waypoint to waypoint as long as we have actually been to those waypoints before. Now, you don't actually have to visit a waypoint to teleport. You can teleport from anywhere on the map, but you're limited to the waypoints you've obviously unlocked at that time. And these new features make PSO2 New Genesis feel a bit more on par with some of the MMORPGs that are out there now. There's also the addition of what the game calls cocoons, which are these little kind of VR training centers that you'll see all over the world that may teach you different functions, as far as like the first one teaching you your movement, which is another huge difference between PSO2 and New Genesis, with the ability to dash, double jump, triple jump in some areas, glide, use floating, gusts of wind to get up to higher points. The motion and movement is vastly improved. And so these cocoons might teach you that initially, where they might actually just serve as challenges later, with a objective of maybe kill a boss, but 3 or 4 sub-objectives to accomplish along the way to net yourself better scores and better rewards as you play. Your mags actually serve a function here in helping you locate cocoons you haven't been to through a little radar. All in all, the performance of the game in closed beta for me was relatively stable. I didn't have too many problems. I had no problems with the Microsoft Store, surprisingly, and if you know me in PSO2, you know I had a huge problem with the Microsoft Store on the original game, getting it from there. This time around, it was much smoother, downloaded, installed just fine, and performance-wise in the game, it wasn't all that bad. I did have a moment or two where the lighting seemed to kind of freak out based on the environment I was in and how tight-quartered everything was as it loaded in. There is a little bit of load in and pop in from time to time. Now, whether or not those will be cleaned up as closed beta finishes here and we move to launch, we'll have to wait and see. So yeah, a little performance issues here and there. But all in all, if you're a PSO2 fan, you're definitely going to jump into this. Now, if you weren't a PSO2 fan, I do want to talk to you for just a moment here, because whether or not you jump into New Genesis, in my opinion, is going to be based on what you didn't like about PSO2 and if New Genesis addresses that. If you didn't like the 8-year-old graphics, New Genesis might just overcome that for you. It's not top tier again, but it is pretty solid, and it fits the environment. It looks like a Phantasy Star game. If you didn't like the instance-based stuff, where you're constantly just from the ship down to a certain location, do your mission, come back, rinse, repeat, this definitely fixes that for you. Now, you will still be doing a lot of rinse and repeat, going out and doing various quests, various side quests, daily quests, weekly quests, maybe hitting events on the way there. Occasionally, popping over and doing an emergency quest. None of that core gameplay loop changes. You are going to be grinding in this game, trying to get those RNG drops, grinding out different items so that you can level those up. That stays the same. But if it was just the instance spacing that kind of annoyed you, this definitely clears that up. If for some reason you just weren't interested in PSO2 at all, it is not your type of game, period. Honestly, I don't think there's anything that New Genesis does that's going to change your mind. As I've alluded to twice already, the fact that the core gameplay loop is very, very similar between the two games. If you didn't like one because of that, you probably aren't going to like the other. I'll tell you what, I'm looking forward to New Genesis. You know me in PSO. I love the franchise, love PSO2. Will still dabble, take my character back and forth between the two. And while this does make me sad that we probably won't see for a while, if ever, any new episodes added to PSO2, I still could see myself jumping back into PSO2 to pick up certain cosmetics, certain skins, certain weapons, so that I could take them over on that exact same character to New Genesis and reskin something that I have there to get a more classic weapon look if I really like the Nox weapons or something like that. It is an interesting take on combining an old and a new MMO. I like that. It feels smooth. It plays smooth so far with the few exceptions I've already talked about. And it's just a great time to be a PSO2 fan because I think New Genesis really hits the mark in a lot of key ways. Now, long term, we'll see. Stay tuned, and when the game releases, we'll be sure to give you our first look video going more in depth in all of the systems, all of the changes, treating it as a brand new experience so that any of you that want to jump into PSO2 New Genesis know exactly what you're getting into. We'll go through menus and cash shop and all of that. There was really no cash shop to speak here. There was like one AC scratch ticket you could do, and you could purchase a subscription, a 30-day optional subscription service, and they gave you a ton of AC to go ahead and do it. So, yeah, there was really no shop or anything. So don't let this serve as a review of the game. Just wanted to give you some initial impressions, talk to you if you played PSO2, and if you didn't, and if you hated it, will this game fix it? We'll see as we get a little further down the road. Hope you enjoyed taking a look at some of the gameplay. If you have questions about the game, by all means, throw them in the comments below here or on MMOBomb.com. That's probably where I'll see them first, on the gameplay action post there. So go ahead and throw the comments or questions down there. I'll be happy to answer them as much as I can. And stay tuned for a full detailed first look when the game releases, breaking down all the classes, all the skill trees, all of the action you can expect in New Genesis. Until next time, gang, this is Mike Byrne from MMOBomb.com saying stay safe. We'll see you on the servers.